2 Samuel, chapter 1. Now after the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and after David had stayed 2 days in Ziklag, on the 3rd day, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes torn and earth upon his head. And when he came to David, he fell to the earth and bowed down to him. And David said to him, Where do you come from? And he said, I have escaped out of the camp of Israel. And David said to him, How did the matter go, I pray you, tell me. And he answered, The people have fled from the battle, and many of the people also have fallen and are dead. And Saul and his son Jonathan are dead also. And David said to the young man who told him, How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead? And the young man who told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and the horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me, and I answered, Here am I. And he said to me, Who are you? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said to me again, I pray you, stand over me and kill me, for anguish has come upon me, because my life is still whole in me. And so I stood over him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was upon his arm, and have brought them here to my lord. Then David took hold on his clothes and tore them, and likewise all the men who were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until evening, for Saul and for his son Jonathan, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. And David said to the young man who told him, Where are you from? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said, Why were you not afraid to stretch forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he struck him so that he died. And David said to him, Your blood shall be upon your head, for your mouth has testified against you, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. And David mourned with this mourning over Saul and over his son Jonathan. Also he told them to teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. And the beauty of Israel is slain upon your high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath, do not let it be known in the streets of Askelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty has been evilly cast away, the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back, and the sword of Saul did not return empty. Saul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. The daughters of Israel weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet, and with other delights, who put on ornaments of gold upon your clothes. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of battle! O Jonathan, you were slain in your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant you have been to me. Your love to me was wonderful, more than the love of women. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished. Chapter 2, 2 Samuel chapter 2. And after this David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said to him, Go up. And David said, Where shall I go? And he said, To Hebron. And so David went up there, and his 2 wives also, Ahinoam of Jezreel, and Abigail of Carmel, Nabal's wife. And David brought up his men that were with him, each man with his household. And they lived in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and they anointed David king over the house of Judah there. And they told David, saying, The men of Jabesh-Gilead were the ones who buried Saul. And David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh-Gilead, and he said to them, Blessed are you of the Lord, that you have shown this kindness to your Lord unto Saul, and have buried him. And now may the Lord show kindness and truth to you. And I also will repay you this kindness, because you have done this thing. Therefore now let your hands be strengthened, and be brave, for your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. But Abner the son of Ner, captain of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead, and over the Ashurites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all of Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David, and the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one of the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side. And Abner said to Joab, Let the young men now rise and play before us. And Joab said, Let them arise. Then there arose and went over 12 from Benjamin, who belonged to Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And each one caught his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side, so that they fell down together. Therefore that place was called Helkath-Haszurim, which is in Gibeon. And there was a very grievous battle that day, and Abner and the men of Israel were beaten before the servants of David. And there were 3 sons of Zeruiah there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as a wild roe. And Asahel ran after Abner, and in going he did not turn to the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, Are you Asahel? And he answered, I am. And Abner said to him, Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and lay hold on one of the young men, and take his armor. But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. And Abner said again to Asahel, Turn aside from following him. And Abner said again to Asahel, Turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab your brother? However, he refused to turn aside. Therefore Abner struck him with the blunt edge of the spear under the 5th rib, so that the spear came out behind him. And he fell down there and died in the same place. And everyone who came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Joab and Abishai also ran after Abner, and the sun went down when they had come to the hill of Ammah, which lies before Giah, by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one troop, and stood on the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, Shall the sword devour forever? Do you not know that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then before you command the people to return from chasing their brothers? And Joab says, As God lives, unless you had spoken, surely then in the morning the people would have gone up each one from following his brother. And so Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still and did not pursue after Israel any more, neither did they fight any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all of Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from following Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, 19 men, and Asahel were missing from David's servants. But the servants of David had stricken 360 men of Benjamin, and of Abner's men who died. And they took up Asahel, and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at the break of day. 2 Samuel chapter 3. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but David became stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul became weaker and weaker. And the sons were born to David in Hebron, and his firstborn was Amnon the son of Ahinoam of Jezreel, and his second was Chileab of Abigail of Carmel, the wife of Nabal. And the third was Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Tilmai, king of Geshur. And the fourth was Adonijah, the son of Haggith. And the fifth was Shephatiah, the son of Abital. And the sixth was Ithream by Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. And while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul, and Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why have you gone into my father's concubine?" Then Abner was very angry for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, "Am I a dog's head who shows kindness against Judah this day, to the house of Saul your father, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not delivered you into the hand of David? Am I a dog's head that you charge me today with a fault concerning this woman? And so may God do to Abner and more also, unless, as the Lord has sworn to David, even so I do to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba." And he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, "Whose is the land?" saying also, "Make your covenant with me, and behold, my hand shall be with you, to bring about all Israel to you." And he said, "Good, I will make a league with you. But one thing I ask of you, and that is that you shall not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face." And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, "Deliver my wife Michal, whom I betrothed to me." And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, from Phaltiel the son of Laish, and her husband went along with her, weeping behind her, to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, "Go, return." And he returned. And Abner had a talk with the elders of Israel, saying, "You sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it, for the Lord has spoken to David, saying, By the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines, and out of the hand of all their enemies." And Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel, and all that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. And so Abner came to David at Hebron, and 20 men came with him. And David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. And Abner said to David, "I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, so that they may make a covenant with you, and so that you may reign over all that your heart desires." And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he had gone in peace. When Joab and all the army that was with him had come, they told Joab, saying, "Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he has sent him away, and he is gone in peace." Then Joab came to the king and said, "What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why is it that you have sent him away, and he is completely gone? You know Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive you, and to know your going out and your coming in, and to know all that you do." And when Joab had come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, who brought him again from the well of Sirah. But David did not know it. And when Abner had returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly. And he struck him there under the 5th rib, so that he died, for the blood of Asahel his brother. And afterward, when David heard, he said, "My kingdom and I are guiltless before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest upon the head of Joab and on all his father's house. And let there not fail from the house of Joab one who has an issue, or who is a leper, or who leans on a staff, or who falls on the sword, or who lacks bread." And so Joab and Abishai his brother killed Abner, because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. And David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, "Tear your clothes, and gird yourself with sackcloth, and mourn before Abner." And King David followed the bier, And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king mourned over Abner, and said, Did Abner die like a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, nor your feet put into fetters. As a man falls before wicked men, so you fell. And all the people wept again over him. And when all the people came to David to eat food while it was still day, David swore, saying, So let God do to me, and more also, if I taste bread or anything else until the sun is down. And all the people took notice, and it pleased them, as whatever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people in all of Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to kill Abner, the son of Ner. And the king said to his servants, Do you not know that there is a prince, and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am weak this day, though anointed king. And these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. Chapter 4, 2 Samuel chapter 4. And when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all the Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son had 2 men that were captains of bands. The name of the one was Baanah, and the name of the other was Rechab, the sons of Rimmon, of Beeroth, of the children of Benjamin. For Beeroth also was counted to Benjamin, and the men of Beeroth fled to Gittaim, and were strangers there until this day. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son who was lame in his feet. He was 5 years old when the news of Saul and Jonathan came out of Jezreel, and his nurse took him up and fled. And as she made haste to flee, he fell, and became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. And the sons of Rimmon of Beeroth, Rechab and Baanah, went and came about noon to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay in bed at noon. And they came there into the midst of the house, as though they would have brought wheat. And they struck him under the 5th rib. And Rechab and Baanah his brother escaped. For when they came to the house, he lay in his bed in his bedroom, and they struck him and killed him, and beheaded him, and took his head, and got away through the plain all night. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth to David at Hebron, and said to the king, Behold the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy, who sought your life. And the Lord has avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and of his seed. And David answered Rechab and Baanah his brother, the sons of Rimmon of Beeroth, and said to them, As the Lord lives, who has redeemed my soul out of all adversity, when one told me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought me good news, I took hold of him and killed him in Ziklag, which was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed? Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand, and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they killed them, and cut off their hands and their feet, and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in the tomb of Abner in Hebron. 2 Samuel chapter 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David unto Hebron, and spoke, saying, Behold, we are your bone and flesh. Also in times past, when Saul was king over us, you were he who led Israel out and brought them in. And the Lord said to you, You shall feed my people Israel, and ye shall be a captain over Israel. And so all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. And David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the people of the land, who spoke to David, saying, Unless you take away the blind and the lame, you shall not come in here, thinking David cannot come in here. Nevertheless David took the stronghold of Zion, the same as the city of David. And David said on that day, Whoever gets up to the gutter and smites the Jebusites, and the lame and the blind, who are hated of David's soul, shall be chief and captain, because they said, the blind and the lame shall not come into the house. And so David lived in the fort, and called it the city of David. And David built all around, from Milo and inward. And David went on and became great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. And Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers and cedar trees and carpenters and masons to David, and they built David a house. And David saw that the Lord had established him king over Israel, and that he had made his kingdom sure for his people's sake. And David took more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he had come from Hebron, and there were still more sons and daughters born to David. Now these are the names of those who were born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, and Shobab, and Nathan, and Solomon, also Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, and Japhiah, and Elishama, and Eliada, and Eliphalet. When the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all of the Philistines came up to seek David, and David heard and went down to the hold. And the Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into my hand? And the Lord said to David, Go up, for I will surely deliver the Philistines into your hand. And David came to Baal-perazim, and David struck them there, and said, The Lord has broken forth upon my enemies before me, like the breaking forth of waters. Therefore he called the name of that place Baal-perazim, and there they left their images, and David and his men burned them. And the Philistines came up still again, and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And when David inquired of the Lord, he said, You shall not go up, but go around behind them, and come up upon them over across from the mulberry trees. And when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the mulberry trees, then ye shall stir yourselves, for then the Lord shall go out before you, and to strike the army of the Philistines. And David did so, as the Lord had commanded him, and he struck the Philistines from Geba until you come to Gezer. Chapter 6, 2 Samuel chapter 6. Again David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000, and David arose and went with all the people that were with him from beyond Baal of Judah, to bring up the ark of God from there, whose name is called by the name of the Lord of hosts, who dwells between the cherubims. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in Gibeah. And Uzzah and Ahiro, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart, and they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was in Gibeah, going with the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord on all kinds of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and psalteries, and on timbrels, and on cornets, and on cymbals. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God, and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error, and he died there by the ark of God. And David was displeased, because the Lord had broken forth upon Uzzah, and he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and said, How shall the ark of the Lord come to me? So David would not remove the ark of the Lord to him into the city of David. But David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord stayed in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom, all his household. And they told King David, saying, The Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom, and all that belongs to him, because of the ark of God. And so David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with gladness. And it happened that when those who bore the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, he sacrificed oxen and fatlings. And David danced before the Lord with all his might. And David was girded with a linen ephod. And so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of the Lord came to the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, stood looking through a window and saw David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And as soon as David had made an end of offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts, and he gave out among all the people, among the whole multitude of Israel, to the women as well as the men, to every one a cake of bread, and a good piece of meat, and a flagon of wine. And so all the people departed, each one to his house. Then David returned to bless his household, and Michal the daughter of Saul came out to meet David, and said, How glorious was the king of Israel today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovers himself. And David said to Michal, It was before the Lord, who chose me before your father and before all his house, to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel. Therefore I will play before the Lord, and I will be still lower than this, and will be base in my own sight. And of the maidservants of whom you have spoken, of them I shall be had in honor. Therefore Michal the daughter of Saul had no child until the day of her death. 2 Samuel chapter 7. This is Family Bible Reading Fellowship. We are reading from the second book of Samuel. We continue reading now chapter 7. And when the king sat in his house, and when the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, the king said unto Nathan the prophet, See now, I live in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells within curtains. And Nathan said to the king, Go do all that is in your heart, for the Lord is with you. And that night the word of the Lord came to Nathan, saying, Go and tell my servant David, Thus saith the Lord, Shall you build me a house for me to dwell in? For I have not lived in any house since the day that I brought up the children out of Egypt, until this day, but have walked in a tent and a tabernacle. In all the places in which I have walked with all the children of Israel, did I speak a word with any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, Why do you not build me a house of cedar? Now therefore so shall you say to my servant David, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took you from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. And I was with you wherever you went, and have cut off all your enemies out of your sight, and have made you a great name like the name of the great men who were in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them so that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more, neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more, as before. And even from the time that I commanded judges to be over my people of Israel, so will I cause you to rest from all your enemies. Also the Lord tells you that he will make you a house. And when your days are fulfilled, and ye shall sleep with your fathers, I will set up your seed after you, who shall come out of your bowels, and I will make his kingdom sure. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men, and with the stripes of the children of men. But my mercy shall not leave him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever. According to all these words, and according to all this vision, so Nathan spoke to David. Then King David went in and sat before the Lord, and he said, Who am I, O Lord God, and what is my house, that thou hast brought me thus far? And this was not yet a small thing in thy sight, O Lord God, but thou hast spoken also of thy servant's house for a great while to come. And is this the manner of men, O Lord God? And what can David say more unto thee? For thou, Lord God, dost know thy servant. For thy word's sake, and according to thy own heart, thou hast done all these great things to me, to make thy servant know. Therefore thou art great, O Lord God, for there is none like thee, neither is there any God besides thee, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And what one nation in the earth is like thy people, like Israel, whom God went to redeem for a people to himself, and to make him a name, and to do great things and terrible things for thy land, before thy people, whom thou didst redeem to thee from Egypt, from the nations and their gods. For thou hast confirmed to thyself thy people Israel to be a people unto thee forever. And thou, Lord, hast become their God. And now, O Lord God, the word that thou hast spoken concerning thy servant, and concerning his house, establish it forever, and do as thou hast said. And let thy name be magnified forever, saying, The Lord of hosts is the God over Israel. And let the house of thy servant David be established before thee. For thou, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, hast revealed to thy servant, saying, I will build you a house. Therefore thy servant has found in his heart to pray this prayer unto thee. And now, O Lord God, thou that art God, and thy words are true, and thou hast promised this goodness unto thy servant, therefore now let it please thee to bless the house of thy servant, so that it may continue forever before thee. For thou, O Lord God, hast spoken it, and with thy blessing let the house of thy servant be blessed forever. 2 Samuel chapter 8. And after this David struck the Philistines and humbled them, and David took Metheg-ammah out of the hand of the Philistines. And he struck Moab and measured them with a line, casting them down to the ground. Even with 2 lines he measured to put to death, and with 1 full line to keep alive. And so the Moabites became David's servants, bringing gifts. And David also struck Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, the king of Zobah, as he went to recover his border from the river Euphrates. And David took from him 1,000 chariots, and 700 horsemen, and 20,000 footmen. And David hamstrung all the chariots and horses, but kept enough of them for 100 chariots. And when the Syrians of Damascus came to rescue Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David killed 22,000 men of the Syrians. Then David put troops in Syria in Damascus, and the Syrians became servants to David, bringing gifts. And the Lord preserved David wherever he went. And David took the shields of gold that were on the servants of Hadadezer, and brought them to Jerusalem, and from Betah and from Berothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took very much brass. Now when Tooi, king of Hamath, heard that David had struck all the army of Hadadezer, then Tooi sent Joram his son to King David to greet him and bless him, because he had fought against Hadadezer and had struck him. For Hadadezer had wars with Tooi, and Joram brought with him vessels of silver and vessels of gold and vessels of brass, which also King David dedicated unto the Lord, with the silver and gold that he had dedicated from all nations which he subdued, of Syria and of Moab and of the children of Ammon, and of the Philistines and of Amalek, and of the spoil of Hadadezer, son of Rehob, son of Zobah. And David got a name for himself when he returned from striking the Syrians in the valley of Salt, 18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom. He put garrisons throughout all of Edom, and all the men of Edom became David's servants. And the Lord preserved David wherever he went. And David reigned over all of Israel. And David did judgment and justice unto all his people. And Joab the son of Zeruiah, who was over the army, and Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was the recorder of the army, and Zadok the son of Ahitub and Ahimelech the son of Abiathar were the priests, and Sariah was the scribe, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were the chief rulers. Chapter 9, 2 Samuel chapter 9. And David said, Is there still any that is left from the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? And there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him to David, the king said to him, Are you Ziba? And he said, Your servant is he. And the king said, Is there not still any of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of God to him? And Ziba said to the king, Jonathan still has a son, who is lame in his feet. And the king said to him, Where is he? And Ziba said to the king, Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lodebar. And then King David sent and brought him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lodebar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, had come to David, he fell on his face and bowed to him. And David said, Mephibosheth. And he answered, Behold, your servant. And David said to him, Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness, for Jonathan your father's sake, and will restore you and all the land of Saul your father. You shall eat bread at my table forever. And he bowed himself and said, What is your servant, that you should look upon such a dead dog as I am? Then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, I have given to your master's son all that belonged to Saul and to all his house. You therefore and your sons and your servants shall till the land for him, and you shall bring in the fruits, so that your master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, your master's son, shall eat bread always at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, According to all that my lord the king has commanded his servants, so shall your servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table like one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah. And all that lived in the house of Ziba were servants to Mephibosheth. And so Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he was always at the king's table, and he was lame in both feet. Chapter 10, 2 Samuel chapter 10. And after this the king of the children of Ammon died, and his son Hanun reigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness to Hanun the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness to me. And David sent to comfort him for his father by the hand of his servants. And David's servants came to the land of the children of Ammon, and the princes of the children of Ammon said to Hanun, their lord, Do you think that David honors your father, that he has sent comforters to you? Has not David rather sent his servants to you to search the city and to spy it out, and to overthrow it? Therefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved off half their beards, and cut off their garments in the middle to their buttocks, and sent them away. And when they told it to David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Stay at Jericho until your beards are grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they had begun to stink before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob, and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and from the king of Maacah 1,000 men, and from Ishtob 12,000 men. And when David heard, he sent Joab and all the army of the mighty men, and the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in order at the entering in of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and Rehob and Ishtob and Maacah were by themselves in the field. And when Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him before and behind, he chose from all the choice men of Israel, and put them in order against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hands of Abishai, his brother, so that he might put them in order against the children of Ammon. And he said, If the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the children of Ammon are too strong for you, then I will come and help you. Be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do that which seems good to him. And Joab and the people who were with him drew near to the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians had fled, then they fled also before Abishai, and entered into the city. And so Joab returned from the children of Ammon, and came to Jerusalem. And when the Syrians saw that they were beaten before Israel, they gathered themselves together. And Hadarezer sent and brought out the Syrians who were beyond the river. And they came to Helam, and Shobach, the captain of the hosts of Hadarezer, went before them. And when David was told, he gathered all Israel together, and passed over Jordan. and came to Helam. And the Syrians sat themselves in order against David, and fought with him. And the Syrians fled before Israel, and David killed the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians, and 40,000 horsemen, and struck Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there. And when all the kings who were servants of Hadarezer saw that they were beaten before Israel, they made peace with Israel, and served them. And so the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon any more. 2 Samuel chapter 11. And after the year had passed, at the time when kings go forth to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all of Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon, and circled Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem, and one evening David arose from his bed, and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon, and David sent and asked about the woman. And one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers, and took her, and she came in to him, and he lay with her. And when she had purified herself from her uncleanness, she returned to her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David, and when Uriah had come to him, David asked how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war went. And David said to Uriah, Go down to your house, and wash your feet. And Uriah left the king's house, and a gift from the king went out after him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and did not go down to his house. And when they told David, saying, Uriah did not go down to his house, David said to Uriah, Did you not come from your journey? Why then do you not go down to your house? And Uriah said to David, The ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents. And my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camped in the open fields. Shall I then go to my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As you live, and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing. And David said to Uriah, Stay here today also, and tomorrow I will let you go. And so Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next day, and when David had called him, he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. And at evening he went out to lie in his bed with the servants of his lord, but he did not go down to the house. And in the morning David wrote a letter to Joab, and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, Set Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and draw back from him, so that he may be stricken and die. And when Joab observed the city, he sent Uriah to a place where he knew brave men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab. And some of the people of the servants of David fell, and Uriah the Hittite also died. Then Joab sent to and told David all the things that concern the war, and he commanded the messenger, saying, When you have made an end of telling the matters of the war to the king, and if it be so that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto you, Why do you approach so near to the city when you fought? Did you not know that they would shoot you from the wall? Who struck Abimelech the son of Jerubbesheth? Did not a woman cast a piece of millstone upon him from the wall, so that he died at Thebez? Why did you go near the wall? Then you shall say, Your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. And so the messenger departed, and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for. And the messenger said to David, Surely the men prevailed against us, and came out to us unto the field, and we were upon them even to the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon your servants. And some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David said to the messenger, So you shall say to Joab, Do not let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as another. Make your battle stronger against the city, and overthrow it, and encouraged him. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when her mourning was past, David sent and brought her to his house. and she became his wife, and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Chapter 12. 2 Samuel chapter 12. And the Lord sent Nathan to David, and he came to him and said to him, There were 2 men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb, which he had brought up and nourished. And it grew up together with him and with his children. It ate his own food, and drank from his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was to him like a daughter. And there came a traveler to the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that had come to him. But he took the poor man's lamb, and dressed it for the man who had come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, As the Lord lives, the man who has done this thing shall surely die. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said to David, You are the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed you over Israel, and I delivered you out of the hand of Saul. And I gave you your master's house, and your master's wives into your bosom, and gave you the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that was too little, I would have given unto you such things besides. Why have you despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? You have killed Uriah the Hittite with a sword, and have taken his wife to be your wife, and have killed him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your house, and I will take your wives before your eyes, and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of this sun. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all of Israel and before the sun. And David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, The Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. However, because of this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme. And this child that is born to you shall surely die. And Nathan left to go to his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and it was very sick. And David therefore prayed to God for the child. And David fasted, and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And the elders of his house arose and went to him, to raise him up from the earth. But he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And on the 7th day the child died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, Behold, while the child was still alive, we spoke to him, and he would not listen to our voice. How then will he trouble himself if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said to his servants, Is the child dead? And they said, He is dead. Then David arose from the earth, and washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothing, and came into the house of the Lord, and worshipped. And then he came to his house, and when he asked, they set bread before him, and he ate. Then his servant said to him, What is this that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while it was yet alive, but when the child was dead, you arose and ate bread. And he said, While the child was alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, Who can tell if God will be gracious to me, so that the child may live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. And David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went into her and lay with her, and she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. And the Lord loved him, and he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah, because of the Lord. And Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David, and said, I have fought against Rabbah, and have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together, and camp against the city, and take it, lest I take the city, and it be called after my name. And David gathered all the people together, and went to Rabbah, and fought against it, and took it. And he took the king's crown from off his head, the weight of which was a talent of gold with precious stones. And it was set on David's head, and he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. And he brought forth the people that were in it, and he put them to laboring with saws and harrows of iron, and under axes of iron, and he made them labor around the brick kiln. And so he did to all the cities of the children of Ammon. So David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. 2 Samuel chapter 13. We're reading from the second book of Samuel. We continue reading now, chapter 13. And after this, Absalom the son of David had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon the son of David loved her. And Amnon was so troubled that he fell sick for his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin. And Amnon thought it hard for him to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, and the son of David's brother-in-law Shimeah. And Jonadab was a very crafty man, and he said to him, Why are you, the king's son, lean from day to day? Will you not tell me? And Amnon said to him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. And Jonadab said to him, Lay down on your bed and make yourself sick. And when your father comes to see you, say to him, I pray you, let my sister Tamar come and give me food, and prepare the food in my sight, so that I may see and eat it at her hand. And Amnon lay down and made himself sick. And when the king had come to see him, Amnon said to the king, I pray you, let my sister Tamar come, and make me a couple of cakes in my sight, so that I may eat at her hand. Then David sent home to Tamar, saying, Go now to your brother Amnon's house, and prepare food for him. And so Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he had lain down, and she took flour and kneaded it, and made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. And she took a pan and poured them out before him. But he refused to eat. And Amnon said, Have all the men go out from me. And every man went out away from him. And Amnon said to Tamar, Bring the food into the room, so that I may eat out of your hand. And Tamar took the cakes which she had made, and brought them into the room to Amnon her brother. And when she had brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her, and said to her, Come lie with me, my sister. And she answered him, No, my brother, do not humble me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. Do not do this folly. And I, where shall I cause my shame to go? And as for you, you shall be as one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore I pray you, speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. However, he would not listen to her voice, but being stronger than she, he forced her, and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her with a great hatred, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, Get up and go. And she said to him, There is no cause. This evil in sending me away is greater than the other that you did to me. But he would not listen to her. Then he called his servant who waited on him, and said, Now put this woman out from me, and bolt the door after her. And she had a robe of many colors upon her, for the king's virgin daughters were clothed with such robes. Then his servants brought her out, and bolted the door after her. And Tamar put ashes on her head, and tore the robe of many colors that was on her, and laid her hand on her head, and went on crying. And Absalom her brother said to her, Has Amnon your brother been with you? But now hold your peace, my sister. He is your brother. Do not set your heart on this thing. And so Tamar remained desolate in her brother Absalom's house. And when King David heard of all these things, he was very angry. And Absalom did not speak to his brother Amnon, neither good nor bad, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had forced his sister Tamar. And after 2 full years, Absalom had sheep shears in Baal-hazor, which is beside Ephraim. And Absalom invited all the king's sons. And Absalom came to the king and said, Behold, now your servant has sheep shears. I beg you, let the king and his servants go with your servant. And the king said to Absalom, No, my son, let not us all go now, lest we be too heavy upon you. And he pressed him. He would not go, however, but blessed him. Then Absalom said, If now not, I pray you, let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king said to him, Why should he go with you? But Absalom pressed him so that he would let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Now Absalom had commanded his servant, saying, Now watch when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, Strike Amnon, then kill him. Do not fear. Have I not commanded you? Be courageous and be brave. And the servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and every man got on his mule and fled. And while they were in the way, news came to David, saying, Absalom has killed all the king's sons, and there is not one of them left. Then the king arose and tore his garments, and lay on the earth, and all his servants stood by with their clothes torn. And Jonadab, the son of David's brother Shimeah, answered and said, Let not my lord think that they have killed all the young men, the king's sons, for only Amnon is dead. For by the mouth of Absalom this has been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar. Now therefore do not let my lord the king take the thing to his heart, to think that all the king's sons are dead, for only Amnon is dead. But Absalom fled, and the young man that kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, many people came by the way of the hillside behind him. And Jonadab said to the king, Behold, the king's sons come, as your servant said, so it is. And as soon as he had made an end of speaking, behold, the king's sons came, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And the king also and all his servants wept with a great weeping. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son every day. And so Absalom fled and went to Geshur, and was there 3 years. And King David longed to go forth to Absalom, for he was comforted about Amnon, since he was dead. Chapter 14, 2 Samuel, chapter 14. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, saw that the king's heart was toward Absalom. And Joab sent to Tekoa, and brought a wise woman from there, and he said to her, I pray you, pretend yourself to be a mourner, put on mourning clothes now, and do not anoint yourself with oil. But be like a woman who has mourned for the dead a long time, and come to the king and speak in this way to him. And so Joab put the words in her mouth. And when the woman of Tekoa came to the king, she fell on her face to the ground, and bowed to him. And she said, Help, O king. And the king said to her, What ails you? And she answered, I am indeed a widow woman, and my husband is dead, and your handmaid has 2 sons, and the 2 of them fought together in the field, and there was no deliverer to part them, but the one struck the other and killed him. And behold, the whole family has risen against your handmaid. And they said, Deliver him who struck his brothers, so that we may kill him for the life of his brother, whom he killed. And we will destroy the heir also. And so they shall put out my coal which is left, and shall leave to my husband neither name nor remainder upon the face of the earth. And the king said to the woman, Go to your house, and I will give command concerning you. And the woman of Tekoa said to the king, My lord, O king, may the guilt be on me and on my father's house, and may the king and his throne be without guilt. And the king said, Whoever says anything to you, bring him to me, and he shall not touch you any more. Then she said, I pray you, let the king remember the Lord your God, that you would not allow the revengers of blood to destroy any more, lest they should destroy my son. And he said, As the Lord lives, there shall not one hair of your son fall to the earth. Then the woman said, I beg you, let your handmaid speak one more word to my lord the king. And he said, Say on. And the woman said, Why then have you thought such a thing against the people of God? For the king speaks this thing as one who is at fault, in that the king does not bring his banished one home again. For we must all die, and we are as water spilled upon the ground, which cannot be gathered up again. Neither does God respect any person. Yet he does devise means so that his banished ones may not be cast out from him. Now therefore I have come to speak of this thing to my lord the king, because the people have made me afraid. And your handmaid said, I will now speak to the king. It may be that the king will do what his handmaid has asked. For the king will hear to deliver his handmaid out of the hand of the man who would destroy me, and my son together out of the inheritance of God. Then your handmaid said, The word of my lord the king shall now be comforting. For as an angel of God, so is my lord the king, to see what is good and bad. And therefore the Lord your God will be with you. Then the king answered and said to the woman, I pray you, do not hide from me the thing that I shall ask you. And the woman said, Let my lord the king now speak. And the king said, Is the hand of Joab with you in all this? And the woman answered and said, As your soul lives, my lord the king, none can turn to the right hand or to the left hand from anything which my lord the king has spoken. For your servant Joab commanded me, and he put all these words in the mouth of your handmaid. Your servant Joab has done this thing to change the face of the matter. And my lord is wise according to the wisdom of an angel of God, to know all things that are in the earth. And the king said to Joab, Behold, now I have done this thing. Go therefore and bring the young man Absalom again. And Joab fell to the ground on his face, and bowed himself, and thanked the king. And Joab said, Today your servant knows that I have found grace in your sight, my lord, O king, in that the king has done what your servant has asked. And so Joab arose and went to Geshur, and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. And the king said, Let him turn to his own house, and let him not see my face. And so Absalom returned to his own house, and did not see the king's face. But in all of Israel there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. For the sole of his foot, even to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. And when he trimmed his head, for it was a very year's end that he trimmed it, because it was very heavy on him, therefore he trimmed it, he weighed his hair, the hair of his head, at 200 shekels, according to the king's weight. And there were born 3 sons to Absalom, and 1 daughter whose name was Tamar, and she was a beautiful woman with a beautiful face. And so Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem, and did not see the king's face. Therefore Absalom went to Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. And when he sent again a second time, he would not come. Therefore he said to his servants, See, Joab's field is near mine, and he has barley there. Go and set it on fire. And Absalom's servants set the field on fire. Then Joab arose and came to Absalom's house, and said to him, Why have your servants set my field on fire? And Absalom answered Joab, Behold, I sent to you, saying, Come here to see, that I may send you to the king, to say, Why have I come from Geshur? It had been good for me to be there still. Now therefore let me see the king's face, and if there is any iniquity in me, let him kill me. And so Joab came to the king, and told him. And when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king, and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king. And the king kissed Absalom. 2 Samuel chapter 15. And after this Absalom prepared himself chariots and horses, and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early, and stood beside the way of the gate. And when any man who had a suit to come before the king for judgment, then Absalom called to him, and said, What city are you from? And he said, Your servant is of one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom said to him, See, your matters are good and right, but no man from the king will hear you. Absalom said, Moreover, O that I might be made judge in the land, so that every man who has any suit or cause might come to me, and I would do him justice. When any man came near to bow down to him, he put forth his hand, and took him, and kissed him. And in this way Absalom did to all of Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. And at the end of 40 years Absalom said to the king, I pray you, let me go and pay my vow which I have vowed to the Lord in Hebron. For your servant vowed a vow while I lived in Geshur in Syria, saying, If the Lord will indeed bring me again to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord. And the king said to him, Go in peace. And so he arose and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigns in Hebron. And with Absalom went 200 called men out of Jerusalem. And they went in their honesty, and did not know anything about Absalom's plans. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel of Gilo, David's counselor, from his city Gilo. And the conspiracy was strong, for the people with Absalom grew more and more. And there came a messenger to David, saying, The hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom. And David said to all his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, Arise, and let us flee, for otherwise we shall not escape from Absalom. Make haste to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly, and bring evil upon us, and strike the city with the edge of the sword. And the king's servants said to the king, Behold, your servants will do whatever my lord the king shall choose. And the king went forth, and all his household after him. And the king left 10 women who were concubines to keep the house. And the king went forth, and all the people after him, and stayed in a place that was far off. And all his servants passed on beside him. And all the Cherethites, and all the Pelethites, and all the Gittites, 600 men who came after him from Gath, passed on before the king. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, Why do you also go with us? Return to your place and stay with the king, for you are a stranger and also an exile. Since you came only yesterday, should I make you go up and down with us today? Since I go where I may, you may return and take back your brothers. May mercy and truth be with you. And Ittai answered the king and said, As the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, surely in whatever place my lord the king shall be, whether in death or life, even there also will your servant be. And David said to Ittai, Go and pass over. And Ittai the Gittite passed over, and all his men, and all the little ones that were with him. And all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people passed over. And the king himself also passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. And lo, Zadok came also, and all the Levites were with him, carrying the ark of the covenant of God. And they set down the ark of God, and Abiathar went up until all the people had finished passing out of the city. And the king said to Zadok, Carry the ark of God back into the city. If I shall find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me again and show it to me, and its dwelling place also. But if he says this, I have no delight in you, behold me, and let him do to me as seems good to him. And the king also said to Zadok the priest, Are you a seer? Then return to the city in peace, and your 2 sons with you, Ahimaaz your son, and Jonathan the son of Abiathar. See, I will wait in the plain of the wilderness until there comes word from you to tell me. Then Zadok and Abiathar carried the ark of God again to Jerusalem, and they remained there. And David went up by the ascent of Mount Olive, and he wept as he went up, and he had his head covered, and he went barefoot. And of all the people who were with him, each man covered his head, and they went up weeping as they went. And one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Lord, I pray thee, turn the advice of Ahithophel to foolishness. And when David had come to the top where he worshipped God, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat torn and earth upon his head. And David said to him, If you pass on with me, then you shall be a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, I have been your father's servant until now, and now I also will be your servant, then you may defeat the advice of Ahithophel for me. Do you not have there with you Zadok and Abiathar the priests? Then whatever you shall hear out of the king's house, you shall tell it to Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Behold, they have 2 sons. There are with them Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son. And ye shall send to me everything that you hear by them. And so David's friend Hushai came to the city, and Absalom came in unto Jerusalem. Chapter 16, we're reading from 2 Samuel chapter 16. And when David was a little past the top, behold, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, met him with a couple of asses saddled, and upon them 200 loaves of bread, and 100 bunches of raisins, and 100 of summer fruits, and a bottle of wine. And the king said to Ziba, What do you mean by these? And Ziba said, The asses are for the king's household to ride upon, and the bread and summer fruit are for the young men to eat, and the wine is so that the ones who are faint in the wilderness may drink. And the king said, And where is your master's son? And Ziba said to the king, Behold, he remains in Jerusalem, for he said, Today the house of Israel shall be restored to me, the kingdom of my father. Then the king said to Ziba, Behold, all that belonged to Mephibosheth is yours. And Ziba said, I humbly beg you, that I may find grace in your sight, my lord, O king. And when King David came to Bahurim, behold, a man of the house of Saul came out from there, whose name was Shimei the son of Gera. He came forth, and still cursed as he came. And he threw stones at David and all his servants, and all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. And so said Shimei when he cursed, come out, you bloody man, and you man of Belial. The Lord has returned upon you all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. And the Lord has delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom your son. And look at you in your mischief, because you are a bloody man. And Abishai the king of Zeruiah said to the king, Why should the dead dog curse my lord the king? I pray you, let me go over and take off his head. And the king said, What have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? Let him curse, because the Lord has said to him, Curse David. Who then shall say, Why have you done so? And David said to Abishai and to all his servants, Behold, my son who came forth from my bowels seeks my life. How much more now should this Benjaminite? Let him alone, and let him curse, for the Lord has bidden him. It may be that the Lord will look on my affliction, and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing this day. And as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hillside over across from him, and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him, and threw dust. And the king and all the people who were with him arrived weary, and they refreshed themselves there. And Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem. And Ahithophel went with him. And when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, had come to Absalom, Hushai said to Absalom, Let the king live, let the king live. And Absalom said to Hushai, Is this your kindness to your friend? Why did you not go with your friend? And Hushai said to Absalom, No, but whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his will I be, and I will stay with him. And again, whom should I serve? Should I not serve in the presence of his son? As I have served in your father's presence, so I will be in your presence. Then Absalom said to Ahithophel, Give advice among you as what we shall do. And Ahithophel said to Absalom, Go into your father's concubines, whom he has left to keep the house. And all of Israel shall hear that you are abhorred by your father. Then shall the hands of all who are with you be strong. And so they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house, and Absalom went into his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. And the advice of Ahithophel which he advised in those days was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the advice of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. Chapter 17, 2 Samuel chapter 17. Moreover, Ahithophel said to Absalom, Now let me choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night. And I will come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed, and I will make him afraid. And all the people who are with him shall flee, and I will strike the king only. And I will bring back all the people to you. The man whom you seek is as if all returned, so all the people shall be in peace. And the saying pleased Absalom very much, and all the elders of Israel. Then Absalom said, Now call Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear likewise what is in his mouth. And when Hushai had come to Absalom, Absalom spoke to him, saying, Ahithophel has spoken in this way. Shall we do his word? If not, you speak. And Hushai said to Absalom, The advice which Ahithophel has given is not good at this time. For, Hushai said, You know your father and his men, that they are mighty men, and they are chafed in their minds, like a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. And your father is a man of war, and will not stay the night with the people. Behold, he is hidden now in some pit, or in some place. And when some of them are overthrown at the first, it will come to pass that whoever hears it will say, There is a slaughter amongst the people who follow Absalom. And also he who is strong, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, shall utterly melt. For all Israel knows that your father is a mighty man, and they who are with him are mighty men. Therefore I advise that all Israel be generally gathered together to you, from Dan even to Beersheba, like the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and then that you go to battle in your own person. So we shall come upon him in some place where he shall be found, and we will light upon him like the dew falls upon the ground. And of him and all the men that are with him there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, as he has gotten into a city, then all Israel shall bring ropes to that city, and we will draw it into the river until there is not one small stone found there. And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. Then Hushai said to Zadok and Abiathar the priest, This and this Ahithophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel, and this I have advised. Now therefore send quickly and tell David, saying, Do not stay in the plains of the wilderness tonight, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up, and all the people who are with him. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed by Enrogel, for there they might not be seen to come into the city. And a girl went and told them, and they went and told David. But a lad saw them and told Absalom. But both of them went away quickly, and came to a man's house in Bahurim, who had a well in his court, into which they went down. And the women took bread and spread a covering over the well's mouth, and spread ground grain on it, and the thing was not known. And when Absalom's servants came to the woman of the house, they said, Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan? And the woman said to them, They have gone over the brook of water. And when they had searched and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. And after they had departed, they came up out of the well, and went and told King David. And they said to David, Arise and pass quickly over the water, for this is what Ahithophel has advised against you. Then David and all the people who were with him arose, and they passed over Jordan. By the morning light there was not one of them that had not gone over Jordan. And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose and went home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order. And he hanged himself and died, and was buried in the tomb of his father. Then David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom passed over Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. And Absalom made Amasa captain of the army instead of Joab. This Amasa was the son of a man whose name was Ithra, an Israelite, who went into Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zuriah, Joab's mother. And so Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. And when David had come to Mahanaim, it came to pass that Shobai, the son of Nahash of Rabbah, of the children of Ammon, and Machir, the son of Amiel of Lodebar, and Barzillai, the Gileadite of Rogelim, that they brought beds and basins and earthen vessels, and wheat and barley, and flour and parched grain, and beans and lentils and other parched food, and honey and butter and sheep, and cheese from cows, for David and for the people who were with him to eat. For they said, the people are hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. We're reading from 2 Samuel chapter 18. And David numbered the people who were with him, and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. And David sent forth a third of the people under the hand of Joab, and a third under the hand of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, and Joab's brother, and a third under the hand of Attiah the Gittite. And the king said to the people, I will also surely go forth with you myself. But the people answered, You shall not go forth. For if we run away, they will not care for us. Neither if half of us die will they care for us. But now you are worth 10,000 of us. Therefore now it is better that you remain to help us from the city. And the king said to them, I will do what seems best to you. And the king stood by the side of the gate, and all the people came out by hundreds and by thousands. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, For my sake be gentle with the young man, with Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains charge concerning Absalom. And so the people went out into the field against Israel. And the battle was in the woods of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were killed before the servants of David. And there was a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men, for the battle was scattered there over the face of the country. And the woods devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. And Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak. And his head caught hold of the oak, and he was taken up between the heaven and the earth. And the mule which was under him went away. And a certain man saw it, and told Joab, and said, Behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak. And Joab said to the man who told him, And behold, you saw him, and why did you not strike him there to the ground? And I would have given you 10 shekels of silver, and a girdle. And the man said to Joab, Though I would have received 1,000 shekels of silver in my hand, yet I would not put forth my hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king charged you and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware that none touches the young man Absalom. Otherwise I would have dealt falsely with my own life, for there is no matter hidden from the king, and you yourself would have set yourself against me. Then Joab said, I cannot stay here with you this way. And he took 3 darts in his hand, and thrust them through the heart of Absalom, while he was still alive in the midst of the oak. And 10 young men who bore Joab's armor surrounded and struck Absalom, and killed him. And Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returning from pursuing Israel, for Joab held back the people, and they took Absalom and threw him into a great pit in the woods. And they laid a very great heap of stone upon him, and all Israel fled, each one to his tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's valley, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name, and it is called until this day Absalom's place. Then Ahimaaz the son of Zadok said, Now let me run and bear the news to the king, how the Lord has avenged him of all of his enemies. And Joab said to him, You shall not bear news today, but you shall bear good news some other day. But today ye shall bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. Then Joab said to Cushai, Go tell the king that you have seen the son dead. And Cushai bowed himself to Joab and ran. Then Ahimaaz the son of Zadok said yet again to Joab, I pray you, come what may, let me also run after Cushai. And Joab said, Why will you run, my son, since you have no good news ready? But he said, Come what may, let me run. And he said to him, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain, and ran past Cushai. And David sat between the 2 gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate to the wall, and lifted up his eyes, and looked. And behold, a man ran alone. And the watchman cried and told the king. And the king said, If he is alone, there is news in his mouth. And he came apace and drew near. And the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called to the porter and said, Behold, another man is running alone. And the king said, He also brings news. And the watchman said, I see the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man, and comes with good news. And Ahimaaz called and said to the king, Peace be unto you. And he fell upon his face before the king, and said, Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delivered up the men who lifted up their hand against my lord the king. And the king said, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant and your servant, I saw a great uproar, but I did not know what it was. And the king said, Turn aside, stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And behold, Cushai came. And Cushai said, Good news, my lord the king, for the Lord has avenged you this day of all those who rose up against you. And the king said to Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, May the enemies of my lord the king, and all who rise against you, do to you hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was much moved, and went up to the room over the gate, and wept. And as he went, he said this, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would to God that I had died for you, O Absalom, my son, my son. Chapter 19. And it was told Joab, Behold, the king weeps and mourns for Absalom. And the victory that day was turned into mourning to all the people. For the people heard it said that day how the king was grieved for his son. And the people went up secretly into the city that day, as people who are ashamed steal away when they flee in battle. But the king covered his face, and the king cried with a loud voice, O my son Absalom, O Absalom, my son, my son. And Joab came into the house to the king and said, You have today shamed the faces of all your servants, for they have saved your life and the lives of your sons and your daughters today, the lives of your wives and the lives of your concubines. In that you love your enemies and hate your friends, you have shamed us. For you have shown today that you neither regard princes nor servants. For today I see that if Absalom had lived, and all of us had died today, that would have pleased you very much. Now therefore get up and go forth, speak comfortably to your servants. For I swear by the Lord, if you do not go forth, there will not one stay with you this night. And that will be worse to you than all the evil which befell you from your youth until now. And then the king arose and sat in the gate. And they told it to the people, saying, Behold, the king sits in the gate. And all the people came before the king. For Israel had fled every one to his tent. And all the people judged themselves throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, The king saved us out of the hand of our enemies, and delivered us out of the hand of the Philistines. And now he has fled out of the land from Absalom. And Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore why do you not speak a word about bringing the king back? And King David went to Zadok and to Abiathar the priests, saying, Speak to the elders of Judah, saying, Why are you the last to bring the king back to his house, since the speech of all of Israel has come to the king to his house? You are my brothers in my flesh. Why then are you the last to bring back the king? And you say to Amasa, You are not of my bone and of my flesh? May God do so to me, and more also, if you are not captain of the army before me continually instead of Joab. And he bowed the heart of all the men of Judah, even as one man, so that they sent to the king, saying, Return with all your servants. And so the king returned and came to Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan. And Shimei the son of Gera, a Benjaminite, who was of Bahurim, hurried and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. And there were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him. And Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants were with him. And they went over Jordan before the king. And a ferry boat went over to carry the king's household over, and to do what he thought good. And Shimei the son of Gera fell down before the king as he had come over Jordan. And he said to the king, Let not my lord charge iniquity to me. Do not remember the perverse way your servant acted in the day that my lord the king went out of Jerusalem, so that the king should take it to his heart. For your servant knows that I have sinned. Therefore, behold, I have come today, the first of all of the house of Joseph, to go down to meet my lord the king. And Abishai the king of Zerah answered and said, Shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? And David said, What do I have to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah, that you should be my foes today? Shall there be any man put to death today in Israel? For do I not know that I am king over Israel today? Therefore the king said to Shimei, You shall not die. And the king swore to him. And Mephibosheth the son of Saul came down to meet the king. And he had neither dressed his feet, nor trimmed his beard, nor washed his clothes from the day that the king departed, until he came in peace. And when he had come to Jerusalem to meet the king said to him, Why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth? And he answered, My lord, O my king, my servant deceived me. For your servant said, I will saddle me an ass, so that I may ride on it and go to the king, because your servant is lame. And he has been backbiting your servant to my lord the king. But my lord the king is an angel of God, therefore do what is good in your eyes. For all of my father's house were but dead men before my lord the king, yet you set your servant among those who ate at your own table. What right then have I to cry to the king any more? And the king said to him, Why do you speak any more of your matters? I have said, You and Ziba divide the land. And Mephibosheth said to the king, Yes, let him take all, because my lord the king has come in peace to his own house. And Barzillai of Gilead came down from Rogelim, and went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over Jordan. Now Barzillai was a very aged man, 80 years old, and he had provided food for the king while he was lying at Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. And the king said to Barzillai, Come over with me, and I will feed you with me in Jerusalem. And Barzillai said to the king, How long do I have to live, that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? I am 80 years old today, and can I discern between good and evil? Can your servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I any more hear the voice of singing men and singing women? Why then should your servant be still a burden to my lord the king? Your servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king, and why should the king repay me for it with such a reward? I pray you, let your servant turn back again, so that I may die in my own city, and be buried by the grave of my father and my mother. But behold, your servant Shimham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what you seem good to do. And the king answered, Shimham shall go over with me, and I will do to him that which shall seem good to you, and whatever you shall ask of me, that will I do for you. And all the people went over Jordan. And when the king had come over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned to his own place. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Shimham went on with him, and all the people of Judah were bringing the king, and also half the people of Israel. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king, and said to the king, Why have our brothers, the men of Judah, stolen you away, and have brought the king and his household and all of David's men with him over Jordan? And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, Because the king is near of kin to us. Why then are you angry for this matter? Have we eaten at all at the king's cost, or has he given us any gift? And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah, and said, We have 10 parts in the king, and we also have more right in David than you. Why then did you despise us, so that our advice should not be sought first in bringing back our king? And the words of the men of Judah were more fierce than the words of the men of Israel. 2 Samuel chapter 20. And there happened to be there a man of Belial, whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjaminite. And he blew a trumpet and said, We have no part in David, neither do we have any inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel. And so every man of Israel went up from after David, and followed Sheba the son of Bichri. And the men of Judah clung to their king from Jordan even to Jerusalem. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them in ward, and fed them, but did not go in unto them. And so they were shut up till the day of their death, living in widowhood. Then the king said to Amasa, Gather unto me the men of Judah within 3 days, and you be present here. And so Amasa went to gather Judah, but he stayed longer than the set time which he had appointed him. And David said to Abishai, Now Sheba the son of Bichri shall do us more harm than Absalom. You take your Lord's servants, and pursue after him, lest he get himself into fenced cities and escape us. And Joab's men went out after him, and the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and all the mighty men. And they went out of Jerusalem to pursue after Sheba the son of Bichri. And when they were at the great stone which is in Gibeon, Amasa came to them to meet them. And Joab was girded with his war coat which he had put on, and upon it was a girdle with a sword fastened upon his loins, in the sheath of it. And as he went forth, it fell out. And Joab said to Amasa, Are you well, my brother? And Joab took Amasa by the beard with the right hand to kiss him. But Amasa took no heed to the sword that was in Joab's hand, and so he struck him with it in the 5th rib, and shed out his bowels to the ground. And he did not strike him again, and he died. And so Joab and Abishai his brother pursued after Sheba the son of Bichri. And one of Joab's men stood by him and said, He who favors Joab and he who is for David, go after Joab. And Amasa wallowed in blood in the middle of the highway. When the man saw that all the people stood still, he moved Amasa out of the highway into the field, and threw a cloth over him, when he saw that everyone who came by him stood still. And when he was moved out of the highway, all the people went out on after Joab, to pursue after Sheba the son of Bichri. And he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel, and to Beth-maachah, and all the Beerites, and they were gathered together, and went after him too. And they came and besieged him in Abel of Beth-maachah, and they threw up a bank against the city, and it stood in the trench. And all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. Then a wise woman cried out of the city, Hear, hear! I pray you, say to Joab, Come near here, so that I may speak with you. And when he had come near here, the woman said, Are you Joab? And he answered, I am. Then she said to him, Hear the words of your handmaid. And he answered, I hear. Then she spoke, saying, They plainly spoke in the beginning, saying, Surely they will ask of Abel, and so make an end of the matter. I am peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? And Joab answered and said, Far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. The matter's not so. But a man of Mount Ephraim, Sheba the son of Bichri, by name, has lifted up his hand against the king, against David. Only deliver him, and I will depart from the city. And the woman said to Joab, Behold, his head shall be thrown to you over the wall. Then the woman went to all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab, and they scattered from the city, every man to his tent. And Joab returned to Jerusalem to the king. Now Joab was over all the army of Israel, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and over the Pelethites, and Adoram was over the tribute, and Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder, and Sheva was scribe, and Zadok and Abiathar were the priests, and Ira the Jeraite was chief ruler around David. Chapter 21. 2 Samuel chapter 21. Then there was a famine in the days of David 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, It is for Saul and for his bloody house, because he killed the Gibeonites. And the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. And the children of Israel had sworn to them, and Saul sought to kill them in his zeal to the children of Israel and Judah. Therefore David said to the Gibeonites, What shall I do for you? And with what shall I atone for this, so that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord? And the Gibeonites said to him, We will have no silver nor gold from Saul, nor from his house. Neither shall you kill any man in Israel for us. And he said, What shall you say, that I will do for you? And they answered the king, The man who destroyed us, and who devised against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the borders of Israel, let 7 men of his sons be delivered to us, and we will hang them up to the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, chosen of the Lord. And the king said, I will give them. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. But the king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, Armoni, and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Maholathite, and he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites. And they hanged them in the hill before the Lord. And they fell, all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of the harvest, in the first days in the beginning of the barley harvest. And Rizpah the daughter of Ai took sackcloth and spread it for herself upon the rock, from the beginning of harvest until water dropped out of heaven. And she did not allow either the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. And it was told David what Rizpah, the daughter of Ai, the concubine of Saul, had done. And David went and took the bones of Saul, and the bones of Jonathan his son, from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them when the Philistines had slain Saul in Gilboa. And he brought the bones of Saul, and the bones of Jonathan his son up from there, and they gathered the bones of those who were hanged, and they buried the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son in the country of Benjamin, in Zelah, in the tomb of his father Kish. And they did all that the king commanded, and after that God heeded prayer for the land. Moreover, the Philistines had war still again with Israel, and David went down and his servants with him and fought against the Philistines. And David became faint, and Ishbi-benob, who was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear was 300 shekels of brassed weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and struck the Philistine and killed him. Then the men of David swore to him, saying, You shall not go out to battle with us any more, so that you do not put out the light of Israel. And after this there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbachai the Hushathite killed Sappiah, who was of the sons of the giant. And there was again a battle with the Philistines in Gob, where Elhanan of Bethlehem, the son of Jeareoramgim, killed the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet another battle in Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand, and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimei, the brother of David, killed him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David, and by the hand of his servants. Chapter 22, 2 Samuel chapter 22. And David spoke to the Lord the words of this song in the day that the Lord had delivered him out of the hands of all of his enemies, and out of the hand of Saul. And he said, The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. The God who is my rock, in him will I trust. He is my shield and the horn of my salvation, my high tower and my refuge, my Saviour. Thou dost save me from violence. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. When the waves of death encircle me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid, the sorrows of hell hemmed me in, the snares of death went in front of me. In my distress I called upon the Lord, and cried to my God. And he heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry entered into his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations of heaven moved and shook because he was angry. Smoke went up out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub, and did fly, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind. And he made darkness coverings around him, dark waters, thick clouds of the sky. And through the brightness before him were coals of fire kindled. The Lord thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. And he sent out arrows and scattered them, lightning and troubled them. And the channels of the sea appeared, and the foundations of the world were uncovered, at the rebuking of the Lord, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. He sent me from above, he took me, he drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They went before me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth into a high place. He delivered me because he delighted in me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanness of my hands he has rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his judgments were before me, and as for his statutes I did not depart from them. I was also upright before him, and have kept myself from my iniquity. Therefore the Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his eyes. With the merciful thou shalt show mercy. With the upright man thou shalt show thyself upright. With the pure thou wilt show thyself pure. With the perverse thou wilt show thyself perverse. And thou wilt save the afflicted people. But thine eyes are upon the proud, so that thou mayest bring them down. For thou art my lamp, O Lord, and the Lord will lighten my darkness. For by thee I have run through a troop. By my God I have leaped over a wall. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is tried. He is a shield to all who trust in him. For who is God except Jehovah? And who is a rock except our God? God is my strength and power, and he makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like hinds' feet, and sets me upon high places. He teaches my hand to war, so that a bow of steel is broken by my arms. Thou hast also given me the shield of thy salvation, and thy gentleness has made me great. Thou hast enlarged my steps under me, so that my feet did not slip. I have pursued my enemies and destroyed them, and turned not again until I had finished them. And I have crushed them and wounded them, so that they could not rise. Yea, they have fallen unto my feet. For thou hast girded me with strength to battle. Thou hast subdued under me those who rose up against me. Thou hast also given me the necks of my enemies, so that I might destroy those who hate me. They looked, but there was none to save. They looked to the Lord, but he did not answer them. Then I beat them as small as the dust of the earth. I stamped them like the mire of the street, and spread them abroad. Thou also hast delivered me from the strivings of my people. Thou hast kept me the head of the heathen. Thou hast given a people that I knew not to serve me. Strangers shall submit themselves to me. As soon as they hear, they shall obey me. Strangers shall fade away, and they shall be afraid out of their strongholds. The Lord lives. Blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God, the rock of my salvation. It is God who avenges me, and who brings down the people under me, and who brings me forth from my enemies. Thou also hast lifted me up on high above those who rose up against me. Thou hast delivered me from the violent man. Therefore I will give thanks unto thee, O Lord, among the heathen, and I will sing praises unto thy name. He is the tower of salvation for his king, and he shows mercy to his anointed, to David and to his seed forevermore. 2 Samuel chapter 23. Now these are the last words of David. David the son of Jesse said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said, The Spirit of the Lord spoke by me, and his word was in my tongue. The God of Israel said, The Rock of Israel spoke to me. He who rules over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. And he shall be like the light of the morning when the sun rises, even a morning without clouds, like the tender grass springing out of the earth by clear shining after rain. Although my house is not so with God, yet he has made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and sure. For this is all my salvation and all my desire, although he does not make it grow. But the sons of Belial shall all of them be like thorns thrust away, because they cannot be taken with hands. But the man who shall touch them must be fenced with iron and the staff of a spear, and they shall be utterly burned with fire in the same place. Now these are the names of the mighty men whom David had: the Tachmonite, who sat in the seat, chief among the captains. The same was Adino, the Eznite. He lifted up his spear against 800, whom he killed at one time. And after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, the Ahohite, one of the 3 mighty men with David, when they defied the Philistines who were gathered together there to battle, and the men of Israel had gone away. He arose and struck the Philistines until his hand was weary, until his hand clung to his sword, and the Lord wrought a great victory that day. And the people returned after him only to spoil. And after him was Shammah, the son of Agi, the Hararite. And the Philistines were gathered together into a troop, where there was a piece of ground full of lentils. And the people fled from the Philistines, but he stood in the middle of the ground and defended it, and killed the Philistines. And the Lord wrought a great victory. And 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came to David in the harvest time into the cave of Adullam, and the troop of the Philistines pitched in the valley of Rephaim. And David was then in a hold, and the fort of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. And David longed and said, Oh, that someone would give me a drink from the water of the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate. And the 3 mighty men broke through the army of the Philistines, and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem, which was by the gate, and took it, and brought it to David. Nevertheless he would not drink of it, but poured it out unto the Lord. And he said, Be it far from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Is this not the blood of men who went in danger of their lives? Therefore he would not drink it. These 3 mighty men did these things. And Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was chief among 3. And he lifted up his spear against 300 and killed them, and had the name among 3. Was he not most honorable of 3? Therefore he was their captain. However, he did not attain to the first 3. And also Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, the son of a mighty man of Kabzeel, who had done mighty acts. He killed 2 lion-like men of Moab. He went down also and killed a lion in the middle of a pit in the time of snow. And he killed an Egyptian, a goodly man. And the Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but he went down to him with a staff, and plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand, and he killed him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, and had the name among 3 mighty men. He was more honorable than the 30, but he did not attain to the first 3. And David set him over his guard.
2 Samuel 23, verse 24 reads, Asahel, the brother of Joab, was one of 30. Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shannah the Haradite, Alikah the Haradite, Helez the Paltite, Ira the son of Ikesh the Tekoite, Abiezer the Anathothite, Mabunai the Hashathite, Zalman the Aholite, Maharai the Netophathite, Haleb the son of Bana, a Netophathite, Ittai the son of Ribai, out of Gibeah of the children of Benjamin, Benaiah the Pirathonite, Hedai of the books of Gash, Abialban the Abathite, Asmaveth the Barhumite, Allahaba the Shahalbonite, of the sons of Jeshan, Jonathan, Shema the Hararite, Ahiam the son of Sharar the Hararite, Eliphalet the son of Ahashbai, the son of the Makathite, Alaam the son of Ahithophel the Gileonite, Hezrai the Carmelite, Parai the Arbite, Igal the son of Nathan the Zobah, Bani the Gadite, Zalik the Amorite, Naharai the Berathite, armor-bearer to Joab the son of Zariah, Ira an Itharite, Gareb an Itharite, Uriah the Hittite, 37 in all.
2 Samuel chapter 24. And again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, Go count Israel and Judah. For the king said to Joab, the captain of the army who was with him, Go around through all the tribes of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, and count the people, so that I may know the number of the people. And Joab said to the king, Now may the Lord your God add to the people, however many they be, 100 times as many, and may it be that the eyes of my lord the king may see. But why does my lord the king delight in this thing? But the king's word prevailed against Joab and against the captains of the army, and Joab and the captains of the army went out from the presence of the king to number the people of Israel. And they passed over Jordan and pitched in Aurora, on the right side of the city that lies in the midst of the river of Gad, toward Jazer. Then they came to Gilead and to the land of Tatim-Hoshai, and they came to Dajana, and around to Sidon, and they came to the stronghold of Tyre, and to all the cities of the Hivites and of the Canaanites. And they went out to the south of Judah, to Beersheba. And so when they had gone through all the land, they came to Jerusalem at the end of 9 months and 20 days. And Joab gave up the sum of the number of the people of the king, and there were in Israel 800,000 strong men who drew the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men. And David's heart struck him after he had numbered the people. And David said to the Lord, I have sinned greatly in what I have done. And now I beseech thee, O Lord, take away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. For when David was up in the morning, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and say to David, Thus saith the Lord, I offer you 3 things, choose one of them, so that I may do it to you. And so Gad came to David and told him, and said to him, Shall 7 years of famine come upon you and upon your land? Or will you flee 3 months before your enemies while they pursue you? Or shall there be 3 days' plague in your land? Now advise and see what answer I shall return to him who sent me. And David said to Gad, I am in great distress. Let us fall now into the hands of the Lord, for his mercies are great, and do not let me fall into the hand of man. And so the Lord sent a plague upon Israel from the morning even till the time appointed. And there died from the people from Dan to Beersheba 70,000 men. And when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord turned from the evil, and said to the angel who destroyed the people, It is enough. Now stay your hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing place of Araunah the Jebusite. And David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who struck the people, and said, Lo, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? I pray thee, let thy hand be against me, and against my father's house. And Gad came that day to David, and said to him, Go up, rear an altar to the Lord in the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. And David went up according to the saying of Gad, as the Lord commanded. And Araunah looked and saw the king and his servant coming on, and Araunah went out and bowed himself before the king with his face upon the earth. And Araunah said, Why has my lord the king come to his servant? And David said, To buy the threshing floor from you, to build an altar to the Lord, so that the plague may be stayed from the people. And Araunah said to David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Behold, here are oxen for burnt sacrifice, and threshing instruments, and other instruments of oxen for wood. All these things did Araunah, like a king, give to the king. And Araunah said to the king, May the Lord your God accept you. And the king said to Araunah, No, but I will surely buy it from you with a price. Neither will I offer burnt offerings unto the Lord my God of that which does not cost me anything. And so David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar to the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And so the Lord was entreated for the land, and the plague was stayed from Israel.